What's up and welcome back to the Kind of Funny Screencast. As always, I'm Tim Geddes, joined by one of the movie bros herself, Joey Noel.
We back, baby.
We
It's been a
back,
long time
baby.
since I've heard that theme song or that
I know.
version of it.
It's
So fun.
nice. It's nice. It's like home,
Coming
getting
home.
into bed, a little hot cocoa. You know what I'm talking about? It's gonna be a good time. We have a lot to talk about. Isn't that right? The sad boy himself, Barrett Courtney.
Hoot hoot, Tim.
Hoot hoot, everybody. Hoot hoot. And the new face of video games, stunning in that shadow. Bling, bling. Of course, we have Blessing Adeoye Jr.
What up? That screencast intro is kind of nostalgic for me. I know this is a hot take. This is maybe unexpected, but back in the day, screencast was one of my favorite Kind of Funny podcasts. I love screencast so much.
There you go.
So I'm honored to be here with the Movie Bros.
It is back, and you're on it. You're going to be part of the legacy going forward. For everybody that missed it, we're going to be doing Kind of Funny Screencast, what we've been calling Kind of Funny Reactions for the last couple months of us doing reviews of different movies and TV shows is going to continue under the Screencast name. And whenever we're all watching a bunch of TV shows that we might not necessarily get their own headline, their own video, we'll come together, do a montage video like this and podcast where we'll hang out, talk about the different seasons of the TV shows that we're watching, what we would recommend, what we might not recommend if we wasted our time watching season 2 of a beloved show on Disney Plus. But maybe we'll get to that later. I'm not really sure. But either way, this is the Kind of Funny Screencast where each and every week we get together at least once a week to review the latest movie and TV shows that you all want to hear us talk about. You can get it on youtube.com/kindoffunny or roosterteeth.com. And if you want to get it as a podcast, you can go to your favorite podcast service and search for Kind of Funny Screencast, and we'll be right there for you. If you want to get the show ad-free, you got to go to patreon.com/kindoffunny, and you will be able to do just that. Now, we've gotten a lot of requests to talk about stuff that's been happening over the last year. We do a pretty good job of hitting all the major movies and obviously the Star Wars stuff, the Marvel stuff we're going to talk about. But there was one show that had a finale last week that everyone in the world was tweeting at me, was on Reddit, was on every social media platform we have. Like, are you guys going to talk about Dave season 2? I need to hear your thoughts. Well, here we are, everyone. We're about to do it. Dave season 2. Blessing, I want to start with you. All of us have seen the full season 1 and 2, just for context there. But Bless, I want to start with you. What did you think?
Dave season 2, starting off, I was a bit worried because the first few episodes weren't doing it for me. Dave season 1 I absolutely adored. I think there's the famous Gata episode that we all love, and that is probably one of my favorite episodes of TV. And I was hoping that season 2 would bring more of that Dave season 1 energy. And starting off, I think it started off a bit rocky, but it found its footing pretty quickly. The one gripe I had throughout the season was Dave, his character himself. I thought they made him a bit too unlikable, which is part of his progression as a character, right? Like that's how they're trying to develop him. So I understood the direction, but it's that thing where there's so many comedies nowadays that where the main character is kind of the villain. I think of things like Atlanta, which Dave takes a lot from. I think of Rami. I think of things like Never Have I Ever, which we'll talk about later. But so many comedies nowadays make the main character out to be this asshole or narcissist or person who is generally unlikable. And Dave really pushed that to its limit for me in a way where I was like, damn, I really hope they make this all worth it, because they were really going for some things this season. And toward the end of it, I think they really did it. Like for me, by the time I finished the season, I felt like I understood the vision and I felt like it was mission accomplished, especially with how they handled the side characters, especially with how they handled Gata, which Gata this whole season kind of felt like way more of a side character to me. But by the time you get to the end, they bring that all back around where the I don't know how are we going into spoilers? Like how are we handling all this?
I mean, it's light spoilers. I mean, it's more
Light
about
spoilers.
Recommending than anything.
Okay.
So don't
So
spoil shit on the hard,
For sure. The way they wrap up the season, I think, packaged it all super beautifully in a way that allowed me to look back and go, okay, that was all worth it. I think there were some bumps here and there. I really like each episode kind of having its own gimmick or guest appearance that really made that episode. I think of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think that was such a good episode. I think the Doja Cat episode was so good. This season, it even though it started off rocky, toward the end, I ended up loving it. I don't know if I can compare. I don't know how I would compare it to season 1, but I will say that this definitely lived up to me in being a incredible season of TV.
Joey Noel.
mean, yeah, Blessing nails it on the head. Like I watched because they dropped the first two episodes together for this second season, I think, right? Maybe, maybe not. I don't remember.
Wait.
Did I lie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, FX on
They did.
Hulu usually does that for 2
Yeah.
episodes. Yeah.
So I watched those first two and I was like, ooh, this is rough. Especially coming off of like the way, like the ending of season one, because I'd gone back and watched, I think, like the last two episodes of season one, with starting with the episode of where they're at the wedding, which just is a gut punch to the heart every time I watch it. That's how I make sure I know that I can still feel things. I just go back and watch that. And so I watched those first two and I was just like, oh, this is not great. And I am not feeling this. And even when we get to the third episode with Benny Blanco, who I love, by the way, like it's
He's
always,
great.
it blows my mind that all of these people, like he's not an actor, he's a producer. And like the same I think of Gata, like he's not an actor, like first and foremost, and yet they put out like these real, obviously on different levels and in different ways, but these like really incredible performances, especially in the finale of season two. But I was just like, it kind of took until the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar where I kind of felt like they were kind of getting their footing for everything, and then by the time we get to like the bar mitzvah and Doja Cat, like all these other things, I'm like, okay, I feel much better, but I still felt like we were missing like the like really deep like emotional things. And then I feel like by the end of the season they really came full circle and hit all the points that made the first season of Dave so worth it to me. It was just kind of like structured differently in this one, but I was real worried there at the beginning.
Barrett.
I loved it. You know, I do understand like the kind of rocky start that Blessing and Joey were talking about, and it was one of those things like going into it and like the kind of like initial reactions, it felt like it made sense of like where they were going to set up this season two, especially of like how season one ends, and this decision that Dave makes, I feel like is the first decision that kind of makes him going to be a very unlikable person, because there's a lot of selfless stuff that I think he does at the end of season one that is hard. It is very emotional and stuff, but then like seeing the kind of immediate aftermath, I was like, this kind of makes sense of like where he thinks he's going, how he's treating others that are close to him, and I think I absolutely adored this entire season, especially with it kind of all coming to a head in the last episode, because it is a weird comparison. It almost reminds me of Uncut Gems in a way, of just like how cringe and like just stressed out you feel in a lot of the scenarios that happen this season, and it feels just like this kind of like really tight fist, just like gripping the entire season. Then you get that release at the very end, you're like, oh my god, which I think is why the finale for this season is. Blessing and I were talking about it off air. Like Blessing was talking about how the season finale might be one of his favorite season finales of anything, and it's definitely up there for me as well. I think just like how it was all brought together by the end of it was just so masterfully done. And yeah, there's just like so many fun things. Yeah, the Benny Blanco kind of episode was really fun. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar episode was the one that like one of the ones that stressed me out the most. And yeah, I just loved seeing the interactions with like, you know, him stepping up to this next level of fame, of him interacting with a lot of these people, and then seeing how that affects everybody around him. And I was kind of missing Gata getting the kind of spotlight in this season, but again, I think that was done very much on purpose to kind of even showcase even more of like how much Dave has sidelined a lot of people, which again is just how it all comes together is so good. Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it as well. Like to me, there's a holy trinity of TV shows right now, and that is Atlanta, Dave, and Blindspotting. And I feel like if you're a fan of any one of those, you have to watch the others. They are so good, and they're all kind of just different sides of the same story, like almost to the point that I'd believe if they were all in the same universe, which is kind of cool. And they're not, but I'm just saying, like in the sense of like the vibes they give off, where it's like they can so effortlessly flip from being a comedy to a drama to the most deep emotional thing you could possibly imagine, and right back every which way depending on what the episode is. And there could be an episode that's a totally different genre, totally different style, and it doesn't feel weird because there's like an artistry that is really the DNA of the entire show like throughout the entire run. And I'm with everybody in the sense of like this season started off in a weird way where it was like coming off of season 1 being so good, where it's like I don't think it really had a dud episode. I do think the first 2 in this season are the weakest episodes of the show overall, but I still don't think that they were bad. They just weren't fantastic. Like they weren't like what I expected. And so it kind of put me off where I was like, I don't know about this. And then when episode 3 hit, which was the Benny Blanco one, I saw online it was still a little bit divided where people were just like, oh man, this shit fell off. I loved that episode because for all the jokes and all the shit, like the way that it ends, I think is one of the more poignant moments in the entire series. And I think that they really did a good job of showing a different side of Gata there. And Gata, I think, was in the series the perfect amount because he was always there to kind of be this like constant that was at the brink of breaking at any moment, but never fully broke. And even when we do kind of see that, it's in a positive way. It's never really he's never seen as the enemy. And we almost kind of see him as in the right against Dave, who just keeps being an asshole, keeps doing the wrong thing. And yeah, that can get a little insufferable. And I will say that once we get to the finale, which is probably one of the best pieces of content I have ever seen in my life, up there with last season's finale. But this one was different because it had that kind of emotional resonance where it all came together and you're just like, these motherfuckers, like they got it, man. They know what they're doing. They have the team and they're kind of firing on all cylinders with it. But my biggest criticism is from episode 1 to episode 10 of the season. I think it's like a slow burn of him being an asshole, and the kind of resolution, it happens a little too fast for me. Like I would have, we kind of see it in episodes 9 and 10. I would have liked to have seen it in maybe like 8, 9, 10 to kind of like give it a little bit more.
We saw it a little bit in like the tail end of episode 8, I would argue. Because I feel like there's a moment of realization for Dave that he doesn't completely accomplish in like actually internally looking into like what he's been doing, but there is like a moment I would argue in season or episode 8 near the end where it's like, thank God that you're
Barrett.
What? Sorry.
I agree with Barrett.
Yeah.
I just reread the thing of like what happened where.
Yeah.
It's less about Dave. It's less about Dave. It's more about like what happens in the finale. I feel like wasn't set up and doesn't actually make sense when you think about it. I don't want to spoil it, but I feel like that could have used a few more breadcrumbs because like so many elements of what happened were introduced in episode 10.
That's fair.
And I feel like if they were introduced a little earlier and like there was a little more debate of like what is that performance going to be and who's going to be a part of it, I think that could have like made it even stronger. But I mean, fuck, I was crying. I was bawling my eyes out. Like legitimately, like this is Pixar levels of, man, these motherfuckers hit me.
And it's in a way that like if this show, like I would love to more of the show, but the way this season ends, like I could see it as like the end of this story. And I was like, yeah, like I could have it either way because I think that's just how strong it is.
By the time we hit that climax point in episode 10, I think the way they did it led to so many emotions and realizations happening at once that it worked for me in that moment. I hear what Tim's saying in terms of there's so much they were setting up to get to that point that they kind of set up in a few seconds and boom, like we're here, right? And like that could have been stretched out over the course of multiple episodes so that slow build could have meant more and felt more nuanced and explored more of that back and forth. But that said, when we get to the final moments and we realize what's happening, for me, I went through so many emotions, right? I went through, oh, okay, this is what's happening. No, wait, this is what's happening. Oh, snap, this is different. Oh, wait, so this is, so they're doing the thing. And like that roller coaster leading into something that I think this season did better than last season, which was the music of this season. I'd say hit way harder than the music of last season, right? Like the songs in the last episode alone were fire, let alone the songs in episode 9. There songs throughout this season I felt were more thought out and felt like Lil Dicky put more TLC into it, with the exception of maybe like the song from the last episode of season 1, which was the first 12 minutes of the episode. That felt like a Lil Dicky song. But so much more this season felt way above the line of "My Dick Sucks" from season 1, right? Like there's so many songs where the final song in this season was a song where I was like, they have to put this on Spotify because this beat is fucking dope. The verses are fucking dope, and what they're saying in it, vibes not only so well with the show, but you can take it out of the show and it's still some dope ass music. And I know we were throwing around theories of, is Lil Dicky gonna drop an album at the end of the show? Like what's gonna happen with these songs? And I wish we got, even if it was a fake album that was the soundtrack to this season, I wish he would drop the album that he was promoting in season 2, because I think that was so good, and that also being played into the storyline of not only his relationship with Gator and the other characters, but also his writer's block, and what the show has to say about creativity works so well as well. Because we talk all about the finale, but episode 10 or episode 9, I'd say, is the other masterpiece in this season of like by the time we get into the second half of that episode, the confrontation that happens and the way that builds and what that has to say about writer's block and creativity, and in a way not giving a fuck about what other people think, but also in a way like like looking inside yourself for trying to find creative inspiration, I thought was so good, and I think is gonna vibe with any creative person. And by the time we get to the end of that episode as well, like there are emotions that I was feeling, that mixture of hype, but then like awe of being like, whoa, like they're really going for it here. I think this season did that stuff so well, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that in terms of just the storytelling too, and like the plot, like sure, as a character, Dave sucked, but it's like that was the purpose. And I think that he really did a good job of putting the Dave character in the show in situations that were very relatable and real in scary ways in a lot of sense, but also just kind of like the dealing with the political landscape that we're in, the social landscape that we're in, and his role in it, and comedy, and like what it means to be a white rapper these days, and like who you're collaborating with, and like the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar episode like kind of deals with it a lot more head on. But I think that it's just kind of prevalent through like this the idea of the privilege of him being able to even do this, and like the privilege of even being able to ask the question, is it real or is it comedy? Doesn't matter. It's like, I think that they really nailed that in a very Bo Burnham-esque way. And I just feel like this has been a very, very good year for these introspective white guys to kind of like figure out their place in all of this, which is a question in itself, right? But I think that the way, without spoiling stuff, the way that they kind of use the platform to really like question things and also actually give a platform to other people is fantastic. Gata in the Bar Mitzvah episode dropping the song in real life, and that thing hitting the fucking Billboard charts, man. Like it's been there since it debuted. How dope is that, right? Like that's so fucking cool. And one episode that I haven't really heard too many people talk about is, it might have been episode 8, maybe it was 7, but the one where they do the
rapping over the beat for Double XL.
The Double XL freshman cipher stuff, where it was like the dual storylines between the freshman cipher, which like is something that obviously bless near and dear to our hearts, always looking at like who's making it each year. But then on the other side, like, it flipping back to him and the girl, what's her name? Emma. Him and Emma working at the marketing place, which is based on his real life. Like Lil Dicky, before he put out hit the ex-boyfriend song, like he was working at a marketing place in San Francisco. Like it's so funny. But
there's a lot of stuff that it's that's like really embedded into like what
it feels autobiographical.
And it's cool because like the way that episode kind of played out, and especially how it ended, every episode had a great plot to itself that added to a bigger narrative. And at the end of the day, the starring characters and the most important characters are the side characters. And if season 1 nailed that with Allie and Gata, I think season 2 took Gata to a whole other fucking stratosphere, and fleshed out Emma in a way that made her so much more interesting and compelling. And man, I'd watch a spinoff of any character in this fucking show.
Absolutely. My only wish is that we got more L's, but going with the narrative of like what's going on in this season, like I got like what they were doing with him, and him kind of being the first one to really see like what Dave was doing and not wanting to really fuck with that. Because I love Taco from Odd Future, and I love that he's in the show, and he does a really good job. Like Joey, you were saying, like there's a lot of people like who first and foremost aren't actors, and it's cool to like know about Taco from Odd Future like way back in the day, and then like they did like Loiter Squad and stuff like that, and now he's in this show and he's really really good. I hope to see him more if they continue the show.
Yeah, Gator especially is one of those characters where I can't believe he's not an actor first and foremost. Like I really want him to win an award for his performance in the season, because especially in the finale, he did such an incredible job with emoting and saying the things that he had to say. Like it all felt so personal, and legitimately felt like an incredible actor at work. And so I love that. But then also going back to the double XL thing, right? Like I love how in so many ways the show feels authentic to hip hop culture and mainstream music culture, in the way that it did tackle the double XL and the lead up to like, okay, yeah, I got to figure out my freestyle, which isn't going to be a freestyle, but I got to figure out like I can't do a 90 BPM rap to a song, to a beat that's 140 BPM. Like I got to figure all that stuff out. I love that, and I love it especially because this show, along with like shows like Atlanta and others, but I would really narrow it down to this show in Atlanta, do this thing well, which is having shows or having episodes that feel situational and feel very much, you can watch this episode on its own, but they do play into the larger narrative in a way that weaves together very well, right? Like the double XL episode and the Doja Cat episode in premise and in pitch have nothing to do with each other, but the way that they both contribute to what we get in the finale, I think is just so well done and super impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going through Hulu last night, like after like watching Dave, and we were watching a couple other shows, and I looked up Atlanta, and it was one of those things where I realized Atlanta season 2 was 3 years ago, Tim. More than 3 years ago at that point.
That's great. Me and Joe, you watched it with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched it both seasons back to back last year, and that was a fucking trip.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
I watched Atlanta as it was coming out, but I rewatched it again this last year, all the way through, and it was fascinating seeing how much Atlanta had influenced other shows, especially Dave. Like Atlanta, I think was the show to really nail down that tone, even the setup of what I just mentioned of having each episode be situational but adding into the greater narrative. Like it did that so well. This representation of hip hop culture, it does so well, and I love watching Atlanta and Dave and see those two shows tackle mainstream hip hop music from two very different perspectives, right? Atlanta being Atlanta hip hop, starting from the bottom and coming up, and Dave being like this dude who wants to do shit creatively, that thinks he's better than everybody, who's trying to get in on this culture that's not necessarily meant for him, but him trying to be authentic with it. And I love both these shows, and Tim, I think you make the good point of how they really complement each other in a way that it feels like they could be part of the same cinematic universe if they really wanted.
And you imagine Gata and Darius,
oh my god,
Lakeith Stanfield's character.
Oh, that'd be so good. I would love that cameo, honestly. Just give me one cameo in Atlanta of Gata.
Just have him show him at a party. It would just make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
A cool thing going on what you're saying, Blessing, about Gata not being an actor, like it's fucking crazy because he's so incredible. And he is Lil Dicky's hype man in real life, Gata. And Lil Dicky's DJ is Els, but it's not Taco.
But his name is Els.
But his name is Els. Yeah. So it's like, it's super cool how it's autobiographical. And I wonder how, and obviously Anthony, whatever his name is, isn't his real manager, but it's cool how yeah. Andrew. It's cool that they made those decisions, but Gata is just like, he's just too damn good. Like you can't cast Gata. Gata is Gata, man. What a show. What a show.
Yeah. He is one of those people. I feel like we've talked about, especially with Tim's, like you have those people that are characters, and I feel like in the Dave universe, like he has all, like it's so funny to see all of those just played out and how well they transfer to the screen, because like who would have thought? I hope he really does get nominated for at least
the last, man. He's
so good.
Yeah. And now before we move on, let me tell you about our sponsors.
This podcast is brought to you by Canva. Guess what? You see all the cool stuff happening and Kind of Funny all the time, the new motion graphics from Tim or from Roger or from Nick or whatever. Guess where they learned to do a lot of that stuff, the new stuff, because they had basic skills before, but not expert skills. They've been learning it from Canva. Canva Pro is the easy-to-use design platform that has everything you need to design like a pro. No matter what you're creating and sharing, Canva Pro has everything you need in one place, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, and graphics. Plus, Canva Pro comes with time-saving tools that simplify and speed up the creative process. Just go to canva.me/kindafunny to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/kindafunny, canva.me/kindafunny. Our next sponsor is Stamps.com. If you know anything about Kind of Funny, you know we've been using Stamps.com for a long time. When Joey was sending out a whole bunch of Patreon stuff way back in the day at the office, she had to start using Stamps.com because we were using so many stamps and it's easier to use. Stamps with Stamps.com. You can mail and ship anytime, anywhere, right from your computer, send letters, ship packages, and pay less, a lot less, with discounted rates from USPS and UPS. Stamps.com saves businesses thousands of hours and tons of money every year. Stamps.com is no-brainer, saving nearly 1 million small business owners like you time and money. And with their switch and save feature, you can quickly compare carriers to find the best rates every time. Stop wasting time going to the post office and go to Stamps.com instead. There's no risk, and with our promo code KINDAFUNNY, all one word, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments and no contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type KINDAFUNNY, all one word. That's Stamps.com, promo code KINDAFUNNY, Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again.
And now that we're back, I want to talk about what is definitely my favorite show of the year, Blindspotting. Now, if you don't know, Blindspotting is a now TV show, was just a movie that came out a couple years ago with Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal, Bay Area as fuck. And it is one of the best movies I have ever seen. It might actually be my favorite movie of all time at this point. Barrett Courtney recommended that I watch it. Janina Gavankar is in it, in the movie. And everything about it, I was like, I just missed out on it. And I was like, everything sounds perfect, but I just missed it.
We just happened upon it. I forget what movie Yusuf and I were seeing in theaters, but like we had saw.
Sorry to bother you.
It might have been Sorry to Bother, but I remember seeing a trailer, or no, Yusuf and I went to go see Blindspotting together. That's what it was. But I remember seeing a trailer for Blindspotting for a different movie. It might have been Sorry to Bother You, where I was like, oh, damn, like, what is this? Like, I need to check this out.
Yeah, and Barrett lent me the Blu-ray. I watched it, and I was fucking mind blown. Like, it is just 10 out of 10 artistry. It is such a film, and like, especially growing up in the Bay Area and growing up interested in the hip hop culture and all that stuff, I was just like, they're speaking to me. The cameos are all there for me. Like, I just couldn't believe they pulled it off. And then they're like, we're gonna make a series out of it, and it's gonna be a sequel, but it's gonna be a semi-different tone, a little bit more lighthearted, whatever. And here we are, one season in, and god damn, they nailed it. I'll be damned if I didn't cry probably 5 times this season at least. They pull at your heartstrings in so many different ways. I could not gush more about it, but before I do, Barrett, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, Alyssa and I loved it. Alyssa, also a really big fan of Blindspotting, Daveed Diggs, and Rafael Casal. She's only been able to watch the movie once because of how intense and how real that movie gets. So yeah, we were super excited for the show, and the only reason that we had a Stars subscription, and we will be maybe putting a pause on that Stars subscription maybe until hopefully a season 2. Yeah, we loved it. It was one of those. It was like a highlight of our weekend for the last couple months, and yeah, it is tonally like overall very different, but still is able to hit on a lot of same, like not same, but like similar themes, and still be able to make a lot of commentary of like everything that's going on in Oakland, things that are going on in prison systems. While also being able to fire on all cylinders with comedy, with music, with visual performances. There's like a couple moments. I think might have been the first episode of the season, Tim, where I think you texted me. It was like, dude, there's a moment at the end of this episode that like gave me chills. And it's kind of like this moment where everybody on the block is just like how like they're blasting music and stuff, and the main character, she kind of like thinks back to nights that were spent in Oakland, and it's just such a beautiful moment. And then like later things of like visual what's it called, like interpretive dancing, kind of like showing like the journey of
Visual
life,
storytelling,
yeah,
yeah.
like this visual storytelling and through interpretive dancing of like the life of these two characters in this universe, and like what they've gone through together and growing up and all of this stuff. And you know, it's so well done. Even like the new characters that we're introduced to, like Colin's sister, Earl, who's like living with Colin's mom and sister. Everything, it was just like, it was able to make a lot of commentary on like a lot of important things that still need to be discussed, while also being funny, while also bringing in a lot of great music, whether original or just like other like or like OG stuff. It was beautiful. And then again, kind of similar to Dave season 2, like how it all culminates in the end. The season finale just hits so hard, especially that last scene, which I would put on par with Colin's kind of rant free verse in the end of Blindspotting, of just like how emotional that hits, and how just like kind of like over the top it is in the best way. It's, and how tragic it feels at the same time. It's such a good show.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about that one moment without spoiling too much, like within the course of 60 seconds, and he's rapping the entire time, it goes from angry to confident to sad to desperate so quickly. And it's just like, God damn, that shit is good.
Yeah.
Joey, what'd you think?
Oh man, I'm with you, Tim. This is probably the best thing I've watched this year. Sorry, Cobra Kai, you've also been very good to me. But I feel like this is just on a different level. This was one of the first things that you and Gia made me watch in quarantine, because we all got locked down. We're all like, well, it's going to be the 4 of us with Cool Greg all hanging out watching stuff. And you're like, how have you not seen Blindspotting? I was like, I have no idea. It just fell through the cracks for me. And I just remember being blown away by it, and then being so excited that we were going to get more of it in kind of a different form. Yeah, the first episode, the thing that I appreciate about Blindspotting is that it does a similar thing to Pen 15, in that both of these shows just capture the essence of what these places and time periods feel like, and so much of that is in the details. Like I think it's the first season when Ashley's up in Miles's room, and she's just like sitting on his bed. It's like when she's going through his box of stuff, and just even like the wall of stickers behind him, I was like, holy fuck.
Damn.
I have not thought about these brands. I have not seen these logos or icons in years at this point.
That was
But
like
it's
some
just
early 2000 shit right
Right?
there. I was
It's
like,
just
oh,
like-
this feels so good.
It's all the little touches that just make it feel like really, really Bay Area. Did I expect to cry to the Thiz dance in an episode of the show? No, but here I was just bawling. I was like, oh, I feel so many feelings.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm interested in people that don't have that kind of Bay Area nostalgia on how it's gonna hit them, and I don't think it'll hit on the same level. Obviously, that's just how these things work. But I do think that there's the characters and the story and the way it's presented transcends all that, because it is just, there's an art to it, and like the things that make the Bay Area special. I think that they did a good job of really kind of condensing into something that, like, I wouldn't even call it greatest hits. This is its own new piece of art and this own new piece of the culture that you can really kind of latch onto and understand, like, what makes these characters tick, and the world, the Bay Area as a character itself, like what makes it work, and the way that they can seamlessly go from, again, like just like I was talking about earlier with the Holy Trinity of Dave, Atlanta, and this, go between genres and go between different things, where a moment can be so sincere between two characters and then be funny, and then all of a sudden it's spoken word, and it just brings it all together and gives context to everything we just saw, a whole new context to everything we just saw. I'm just so impressed. Not a single wasted moment, and every single time the credits would hit, I was like, damn it.
I know.
I can't wait for what happens next. And it's not in like a cliffhanger way of like, oh, what's going to happen? It's just, what are they going to give me? What are they going to allow me to see? The interpretive dance scenes. There's another one that hit me really hard was when they are like going through the house and kind of
It's
the
showing
mom.
Miles and
So Helen Hunt is the mom in this, by the
Yo,
way.
and
which
she's
she
great.
fucking killed it.
Yeah.
But her kind of reminiscing of the two kids growing up in this house playing, it's just like, oh my God, how did they do this so well with just showing these people dancing without words, just music happening? Like it's absolutely incredible. And Bless, I can't wait for you to watch this. I think you're going to love it.
I'm excited to check it out because I really did like the movie. I watched the movie about a few months ago, and I thought it was pretty awesome, especially being new in the Bay Area. You know, it was fun to get a movie that was very Bay Area. Like I had for the longest time, I was like, man, why are all my friends recommending this to me? And I realized that like after watching it, I was like, oh, all the people recommending it to me were from the Bay Area, and so it's a fun glimpse
Probably
into
us. It's probably Yusuf.
Yeah, I think it was
Belinda,
y'all.
like,
It
that
was
whole crew.
Yusuf. You know, it was probably Belinda too. Like it was mainly all people I knew from the Bay Area. But yeah, you guys mentioned that scene towards the end of the movie where Dewey Diggs is breaking into freestyle and stuff like that. You know, I really dug, and I really dug it for how much it pointed toward spoken word poetry culture, which is the thing I was not expecting because I used to do spoken word all the time. And in the movie, I would recognize certain folks, like Sarah Kay showed up, Watsky showed up, and I think like another poet here there showed up in the movie as well. And I was like, huh, it's very interesting. And I realized that the I forget his name, but the white dude. Yeah, he himself is a spoken word poet, and I didn't recognize him. But then I looked him up, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I literally watched your stuff."
There was like a big kind of like I would say like the late 2000s, early 2010s of like this culture around spoken word in the Bay Area that like really blew up. Like with people like Watsky, that was just phenomenal.
Yeah, and so like I'm excited to watch the show because I expect I don't know how much more of that there will be, but
a lot.
Okay, I was gonna say if he's still on it, then I expect there to be some to some extent, and so I really want to check it out. And it's awesome to see that they bring back some freeverse stuff, like Barrett mentioned before.
And the main
shout
character,
out to, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go for it, Bless or Barrett. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna shout out Jasmine Cephas Jones, who plays Ashley, who is Rafa's girlfriend in the movie. She's the main character. The kind of premise, like in the aftermath of the movie, Colin has gone away for a bit, and then Rafa finds himself in what's his name? Miles finds himself in some trouble. So yeah, it's really focused on her and like her dealing with the aftermath of some things, trying to talk to her son about a lot of the stuff that Miles has gone through, and dealing with some of the guilt that she carries, and a lot of like just like what the family, Miles's family as a whole, is what they're trying to do and come together with while he's doing his stuff. And yeah, it's so good. And I just want to shout out two things. We get Rafa in a suit in an episode, and he looks so fucking good.
So good when they're on that hill.
When they're in
the
hills and they're looking at Oakland, and he's in that suit. I'm like, God damn, dude. And then also we get fuckboy Anthony Ramos in the show for a couple scenes, and it was just it was beautiful. Yep. It was fucking beautiful.
Yeah, going back to Ashley for a second. She was also one of the leads in Hamilton, and she is dating Anthony Ramos, which is fun. But Bless, to talk about you wanting the spoken word, I think if I remember correctly, she has an extended spoken word segment in every episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
if not every, then like maybe like 8 out of 10 or something. But I think it's every.
It's almost. It should be almost every.
They're
episode,
fucking good.
Yeah.
And other characters get them too at moments, and it's just like, oh my Lord. Like literally, the show gives me chills just constantly.
The episode where they're watching Sean and they have the whole conversation about like, what does it mean to be like Black enough and stuff like that was like a really powerful thing. And like, obviously I'm not Black, but like to feel the dissonance of like, in my personal experience, like, am I Mexican enough? Am I Japanese enough? And just having those like conversations about like your roots and like what that means outwardly. And like, it was really cool to see on like played out on TV. And then what was the other one? Oh, I fucking love Trish.
Yes, dude.
Character.
Yo, like
Is this her
Les-
first acting credit? No, it's not.
I
I'm looking
have
at
no
other stuff.
idea,
I'm
but
looking at other
she's
stuff. She's so
hysterical.
good. Yeah.
there's like a little sister character who's like what 20, it seems like something like
Yeah,
that.
she's
Yeah.
so
And
baby.
she is the breakout in the same way that
Mm.
like Gata is the breakout in Dave. Very different types of characters, but like she's anytime she's in the scene, it's stealing it. Like
Yeah.
she's every line she has is just fucking gold.
Oh, she's in Shameless apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, she's only 23, and so yeah, this felt like a moment. Like her performance in this season really felt like a moment, hopefully, in her career. Because yeah, I would love to see her in more stuff. And again, I can't wait to. Hopefully, when they get a season 2, we'll get much more of her character, which was just fucking fantastic. I love like the run-ins with like her at the bank talking to the dude who was in the car that Rafa was negotiating with in the movie, and their
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
like dropping literally every kind of Bay Area like slang stuff in like a matter of like a minute, and that
It was
repeating
art.
so good.
Art.
And then like running into him again in like the bowling alley. There's a lot going on just with like the making kind of their world of Oakland feel like a whole was just so good. And yeah, there's so many great scenes with Trish especially.
Yeah, before we move on to the other shows, just real quick, I wanted to say that it's just so authentic. Like they really nailed like what makes everything special about what we're talking about. And something I think is really cool is every week Rafa would do a Twitter thread of Easter eggs and like things like breaking it down. Like there's so much care put into all this stuff. And what was really cool is, unfortunately, because of COVID, this wasn't the case for season 1 fully, but the majority was. But for season 2, if it happens, it's not greenlit yet. Every single element is going to be from the Bay Area. So it's going to be people like the production team and like where they're shooting and like the music used, the dancers used, all that stuff. It's going to be 100% Bay Area.
Gives me like chills.
Yeah, it's cool, It's like it makes it special. And then season 1 though was like something like 80%, but the 20% like they had to shoot on sets and stuff that weren't here. But anyway, very, very, very cool stuff. Want to see more of that from other places. Like again, like seeing Atlanta, like gives you this whole other understanding of like a culture in a different place. So it's really cool.
I will say that the last episode of Blindspotting feels the most like a setup of a Dave, like the structure of a Dave episode, in the way that like things that just get mentioned at the beginning come back full circle in like such a perfectly orchestrated way, so that I feel like, yeah, it is the holy trinity of those 3 shows.
I gotta recommend you guys check out. I don't know if you have checked out Rami, but Rami
Not
in
yet.
terms of the show structure and setup, feels like it is part of that family of like a Dave, Atlanta. It sounds like
also on Hulu,
Blindspotting
right?
has it. It's also
that's another
on Hulu.
FX.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that might just be their bag, right? Like that might just be the FX effect. Definitely different subject matter, right? Like it centrals around the character Rami and him being Egyptian and him being Muslim. But like watching through it, I was in it all the way. Like it has a very similar tone and vibe as all the other shows that we just talked about. And so if you like that, I would say give it a watch for sure.
100%. I am going to do that. But unfortunately, that's not what we're doing right now. We are going to talk now about High School Musical, the series, season 2. Blessing, I want to start with you.
God, I love High School Musical, the series so much. Season 1, I know I'm a mad person, but it's one of my favorite seasons of TV. Like, and I think it's just the unique thing of me growing up and loving High School Musical, just as a Disney Channel original movie, and this show just leaning into that so much and bringing back the songs and taking the songs and recontextualizing them in a way that would give songs that I loved from back in the day new meaning. That was such a thing that was so unique to this show and unique to season 1. And so going to season 2, I had such high expectations. And season 2, I didn't like as much as season 1. I did like it by the time I got to the end of it. It took some time to warm up. I think it's the thing of the storylines that they tackled in season 2 from the get-go felt a bit like it didn't feel like it really took advantage of what we liked about these characters. Like Nini was off away in school doing her own thing. Like you had the characters doing Beauty and the Beast, and so not High School Musical 2, and they were doing their thing without Nini. You had certain character dynamics being set up. You had Big Red dating Joey. Do you remember her name?
No, I don't.
Ashlyn.
There we
Ashlyn,
go.
yes, yeah, Big Red dating Ashlyn, and so many of these elements I feel like didn't work perfectly. Like I never really believed in Big Red and Ashlyn's chemistry together. The having Nini be away from the gang for a big part of the season, it just felt disjointed, and it felt like a thing that they kind of forced. You know, it felt like them being like Olivia Rodrigo isn't as available, and I don't know if that was true or not. I don't think that was true, but
I don't
you know,
think
for
so.
whatever reason they did it, it just didn't it didn't feel right. And I think the way that they handled Ricky and Ricky and Olivia Rodrigo's character, Ricky and Nene in this season just didn't do them justice. That said, by the time we get later into the season, I really warmed up to what they were doing with a lot of the other characters. Like I think Gina is the shining character of this season. With the way they handle her, the way they handle her and other characters' relationship, I thought was super well done. The Beauty and the Beast stuff, I thought was cool. I didn't love it as much as the High School Musical stuff, but the musical breaks I think were good. I it's rough because I can't look at any part of the season that I would take and be like, this measures up to season one, and that's like a sad thing for me to take away from it. But that said, it's still a fine season two for the show. I don't know, Joey, if you feel any sort of similar.
So I didn't even finish the season. I made it through episode 5 and I was like, I think I'm out. I didn't like the Nene being gone thing. To me, it felt like they were like, hey, we have this conflict from season 1 and we made this whole thing about maybe she's gonna be gone, maybe she's not, and now we have to like actually deal with it. So it didn't feel like, even like motivations wise, I don't feel like it felt super real. And like there was a lot of, I mean, obviously I didn't finish it, but even just the way that like I've heard about things playing out for the season, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I felt about this. I like a lot of the side characters. I think, I don't know, there was just some magic that was gone.
Yeah.
Was this influenced by the fact that I'd been listening to Sour nonstop and I was like, Joshua Bassett, you did our girl wrong. Did he? I don't know. They're teenagers. Like, I don't know if I'm this invested in it.
Who cares? We are still firmly on team Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
But yeah, like I really did try to like push through more because I think I stopped at like episode 2 and then I ended up watching like 3 more episodes. I was like, I heard my boy Jordan Fisher's in this. I gotta get to it. And
Yeah,
it's
he
like,
is.
you got a ways to go. I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm gonna make it there.
I will say, but the place where they end up toward the end of the season, I enjoyed. Like, the like in the way that last season they put Olivia Rodrigo in this place where like she's going away and like all these things, and they set up the next season. This season ends, and I was like, okay, cool, I like this, and I like the last 2 episodes, but then they set up one more thing. Like they do one more thing with Ricky's character where I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Right? Like
What
this
the
isn't.
fuck are you doing?
What are you doing? Like this doesn't make sense for his character. Like this, and I don't like. Again, is this a Olivia Rodrigo like sour situation, or are you guys just?
She is
just
blonde.
Not, I mean, she is blonde. She is blonde. Wait, Tim, have you watched it?
Oh yeah.
Oh shit! What are your thoughts? I want to know.
Well, hold on, let Barrett go for it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Joey. I don't even think we got to episode 5. It was like we got to maybe halfway. Whenever they celebrated Blonde Kid's birthday, I think that was the last episode we had watched, and it was one of those things of like story stuff wasn't hitting for any of us. The way characters were depicted wasn't working for Alyssa and I. Even the music stuff, like even like when they would finally get into like music numbers, we were like, this is not nearly as strong as some of the hype whenever a song started in season 1.
The only music numbers I really liked were the Beauty and the Beast ones. All the other original music numbers just didn't vibe with me.
Maybe we didn't get like far enough in, but even like the Beauty and the Beast stuff, I feel like the way they interpreted some of those songs, it's just like didn't feel strong enough to really stand out for us.
The sing-off dance battle part? Because I thought that was the strongest musical moment of the show.
That sounds familiar.
Oh, with the other high school?
Yeah.
Oh, with the other high school? No, I don't think so. I don't. The only thing we knew about the other high school is that blonde girl like left the current school to go over there. But yeah, it really felt like, and hearing Marie, the more of you guys talking about it, it felt like the way they had ended season 1 felt like they wanted to end it purely just to have a kind of like cliffhangery type of moment without really thinking more of like what they were building towards. Because even in the first 2 episodes, it felt like they didn't even have the answers of what they wanted to do to follow up season 1, which was like, I feel like the most disappointing thing to immediately feel when the season started. So yeah, that's like all of those things put together. Alyssa and I just dropped off eventually. And especially, I think Tim, at one point you were saying like, yeah, it hasn't gotten that much better. And it's just like, yeah, all right, we might be done. It might be one of those Friday nights where we're so bored and we're like out of things to watch that we're like, let's try it at least, and maybe we'll be in a different headspace where it might hit different for us. But yeah, that's where we were at.
Yeah, bless. I'm happy that you enjoyed it even as much as you did. I was like teasing this whole episode about how not good it is. So I'm happy that at least somebody found some joy in it. Yeah, I am with you that season 2 is nowhere near as good as season 1. I'm not with you that season 1 is that good to begin with. I think that you're right in that the recontextualization of songs from the movies in season 1 is where it shines the most. And Olivia Rodrigo is a star. I love her.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I think that season 1 really did a good job of making it interesting enough to watch, even if it's not the greatest thing ever. And it is like pretty a low bar when it comes to like the mockumentary style that they're going for. It doesn't do anything unique or special, but it does what it does well enough, and it has interesting enough characters that I was invested in Nini's journey. And I think her friends are great. Courtney, who kind of like has a lot of moments to shine in season 1 and season 2, but I think season 1 really made her stand out to me, and I liked that. And the kind of love triangle with EJ, and then when you introduced Gina and then Ricky as well, like the kind of like insanity of all that, like that was enough stuff where I'm like, you know, I'm a sucker for the bullshit high school drama. So they did a good job. But like you guys have all said, the season ended with a cliffhanger that even at the time felt like, all right, what are you doing here? And once the season 2 started, you're like, oh wow, they really are trying to dig themselves out of a hole that they made. And the first 2 episodes really just kind of feel like an excuse to get her back with the rest of the people. But by that point, I feel like they just lost the narrative, and I'm lost where I'm like, they introduced this blonde girl from the other school, or that ends up at the other school, and I'm like, this is actually kind of interesting. Like, there's this whole threat of another school that they're bringing into this. I'm always a fan of rivalries. Shout out to Cobra Kai. If they were going to turn this into a high school musical battle in this city where it's like everyone in the city cares and they're all in it, then I'm
battle
in
for the soul of acapella theater.
But it doesn't really ever quite hit that. And I think the biggest disservice this season does is not only is the original music not nearly as good as season 1, but more than that, all the character development and all the interesting characters they had in season 1, the things they have them do in this season, I think are abysmal. And bless, the place I really wouldn't agree with you is Gina's character in season 2. It really felt like Gina and EJ, they're like, we don't know what the fuck to do with you, but we need to have scenes that you sing at some point. So we're just going to like kind of put you through some motions. We don't even know what motions they are. And I don't believe in them together at all. They made EJ's character in season 2 a complete dumbass. Like, it reminds me of like Eric Matthews in Boy Meets World, where early seasons, he's like a normal, cool, popular guy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he's this fucking idiot.
Or like
Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story
so
1. He had the whole. Oh, go for it.
He was an idiot, but in this season, he's like irredeemably doofy. Like, everything he says is like, what show are you on right now? Like, I know this show's campy, but like, he takes it to another level. And you put that next to Gina, who's incredibly talented. I don't know the actress's name, but she is a fucking standout.
Wiley, I think.
Easily the best dancer.
She's
easily
a good TikTok follow.
That sounds fantastic. Like, I'm sure she's kills it there. Like, she's so talented. But the storyline they gave her kind of just feels like they were just pulling these strings, like the airport scene of Her Bless, where the kid from Shazam shows up. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, didn't expect to see this. That was my favorite scene of the whole season. Them talking, them building this kind of idea of like really kind of getting into who are they and what is their place in the world and all that shit. And then they just, bye. That's it. It's over. And then Jordan Fisher's here. He's her brother. It's the most forced cameo I've seen in a long time. It's like, all right, I don't know about this. And then it ends and I'm like, okay, let's really reflect on what this season did. And what it really did is retread everything we saw in season 1 in a worse way. And the storyline between the teacher, what's her name?
Oh yeah,
Mrs.
Miss Jen.
Miss Jen. Yeah. She goes from weird to just fucking like, we need to fire this woman. She is inappropriately treating these students in ways that like is just not acceptable and not okay. But more than that, I don't want to see her anymore because I actually really liked her as a character. But how many times are they going to tease a relationship between her and the AV teacher and Ricky's dad? And it's like a will they, won't they? And then they introduce this other dude that Joey, what's his name? The dancer guy.
Oh, Derek Huff.
Derek Huff. And I'm like, great, there's a third force now that I'm equally not interested in. Commit. Just give me something to work off of. They just keep doing the.
Yeah.
How many times, Bless, is there a scene where Miss Jen is talking to one of the guys and then another guy walks in the hallway and looks over at them and goes, oh, man, and like walks away? It's like, what the hell is this fucking
They acknowledge
show?
it by the end of the season. They're like, is it weird that he keeps showing up? And he's like, yeah, it is kind of weird.
I think that's my biggest issue with that show is like, I don't care about these adult relationships and please stop trying to make me care. It felt a little bit like Degrassi. You know how like they would always talk about like the parents and like all of their drama, but it
Be
made
careful
sense
with your
for
words
Degrassi.
here, Joey. Thank you.
Here's
Thank you.
getting there. And sense for Degrassi, it's a generational show.
Joey, you
Those
might want to
actors
restart.
and characters were
You might want to restart
okay.
Discord. Sorry.
okay. BRB. How do I?
I really want to know what this Degrassi.
I remember what she
Yeah.
said. We'll have it. It's the generational characters.
Mm.
She has a really good point she's making.
God, remember Degrassi?
Oh, I'll never forget Degrassi.
It's still on TV, isn't it? They're still
Oh,
going
yeah,
with
they're
that
still
show, aren't
going,
they?
dude.
Really?
They're still going.
I went way further with Degrassi than I ever should have. I was
Me too.
watching the Degrassi the New Class or some shit
Uh-huh.
in like
Wow.
2012.
Yeah,
Wait,
they brought it back on
that's way too
Netflix.
Good
Go,
for them.
okay, Joey, go for it. You're talking about
Generational characters. So they were in Degrassi, the first, whatever, not the next generation, whatever it was called before that.
Degrassi.
So you care about them and you like have all this background in history. It's like, I don't care about Ricky's dad. I kind of marginally care about this teacher because I think he's somewhat funny.
Somewhat cool.
And the teacher, but I'm like, I don't know that we need all of the, like, I'd much rather take all of that time for all of those people being on screen and getting more character development for all the side characters.
Absolutely. Now, for Ignacio Rojas, he's been wanting us to do our High School Musical, the series in review. So we got to do it right here. Let's do a little some ranking of High School Musical, the series.
Okay.
Would anyone put season 2 over season 1?
Absolutely not. No.
So there you have it, the rankings. Number 1, High School Musical, the series, season 1, and then a distant second, High School Musical, the series,
Now,
season 2.
I would love to do an eventual High School Musical ranking. I'd
I
be
don't
all
know
in
that
on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be a me and Joey joint.
Maybe.
Listen, we got to get to
maybe.
DComs eventually. We will run out of movie series and
that's
we'll
a
be
good
so
point.
desperate to do DComs.
But we're not done yet. It's time for a little ragu bagu. Joey, hit the song.
Dun 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 dun.
Ragu.
Dun 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 dun. Dun.
Ragu.
Man, I
What's
thought Andy
up,
was back and
everyone?
I was out of having to do these theme songs anymore.
Welcome to Rad Guys Talk Bad Guys, the podcast within a podcast where we rank and review, just rank the bad guys in different TV shows. Let's see. We got to rank the bad guys in High School Musical, the series, season 1 versus season 2. Season 2, clearly, we have the blonde girl
Yes.
Yeah.
In her
and,
other school
and Derek
army.
Hoff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Season 1, who would you say are the bad guys?
Gina?
Yeah, okay.
I don't feel like
I
there
can't think of
really
anybody
is
else.
Like everybody is like kind of an antagonist onto themselves, you know. That's what season
Yeah.
1 is about.
High School Turmoil.
Yeah, High School Turmoil, I would say, is the villain in season
Yeah.
1.
Either way,
Mm.
season 1 has a better villain.
Yeah.
No matter how you shake it. I didn't
Yeah, that's a good
love
point.
the other school. I didn't
that's-
love them.
And that's unfortunate because honestly, there was a lot of cool elements of introducing the other school and like them being better and having more budget and being able to do all this stuff. And on top of having this little blonde girl who is just pure evil.
Yeah.
And they try to redeem her
good at
kind
it.
of, but then they don't. They're just like, no, she
It's
sucks.
weird because they try to redeem her, but then like they're like, actually, but no, she really does suck. Like, she stole the thing. And then I'm like, okay, it got to the point where at the very end when she is flirting with Ricky, I'm like, I don't know what to believe anymore.
I'm
because
angry
you keep
now.
pushing this. You keep pushing the fact that she wants Ricky, and I can't tell if this is a ploy to break up the other school. And if so, like, why does she care that much? They've already won. Like, why are we still here? It's weird.
Yeah. It's really, really weird. And it could have been cool because there are moments that are interesting, like the reveal of who's wearing the beast
Oh
outfit
yeah.
at the other school. It's like, I'm kind of interested in this. And then they reveal it, it's like, oh shit, that's not who I expected it to be. That's pretty cool. And then again, it kind of feels like they keep going back to the same storyline, but it never goes anywhere. It's just like by the end of it, you're like, so what are we supposed to take away from Courtney's relationship with him? Everything's okay? Because I don't know. But anyway, season 3. What musical do you think they're gonna do?
God,
I think they
I
go
just want
back
them
to
to do
High School Musical
too.
season 2.
Just
I think they go
please.
back.
Because like
I
the
think they
first
have to.
episode, I mean, the best episode of the season probably was the first episode where they were doing the High School Musical 2 medleys and songs, and that for me was a jam. I absolutely love that episode, and I think there's so much to do there, and I think that would bring it would kind of bring it back to, hey, we have so much we can work with in High School Musical 2 versus Beauty and the Beast. Like, I don't know. I think you need something quirky like that as opposed to something that people really love and respect on the level of Beauty and the Beast versus
Got it.
High School Musical, which is goofy and different and fun.
Although
Yeah.
this did bring us Olivia Rodrigo dressed as a fork.
That's true.
That was never not funny to me anytime that it happened. So
The more that we talk about it, the more I realize I did watch like 8 episodes of this, and they were just so forgettable that I
You still have
completely
4.
forgot that I did.
I think I stopped watching at episode 9, and like when we said we were gonna do the screencast, I was like, okay, cool, I'll catch up and watch the finale. Open up Disney Plus, and I was like, shit, there's 3 episodes left. Here we
Yeah.
go.
it is a 12 episode season of High School Musical, the musical, the series. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about Never Have I Ever, season 2.
I'm so excited. It's me and Blessing, I think, are the only
Yeah.
ones that have watched it. Have you guys watched season 1 at all, or any of this show?
Oh, I watched 3 episodes of season 1.
Not feeling it?
It was okay, and it just
Yeah.
wasn't grabbing me where I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna stop everything to keep watching.
I really like this show in terms of like the teen dramas. I think that they do a really interesting. It's Mindy Kaling that wrote it.
That writes
I
it.
think. Yeah. And yeah, we had talked about this. I think Blessing had talked about this earlier about like writing these like flawed main characters that like you don't really like, but also allowing them to like make mistakes and stuff like that. And that is prime season 2 of Never Have I Ever.
Yeah, it is.
It's hard to watch at times because the whole time you're just like, Davey, why are you doing this? Why are you doing these things? But then you remember it's like high school, and you don't necessarily have the forethought, and like you get so stuck in systems and stuff like that. But I think some of the development they do with the side characters in this is really good. I think we get really. I didn't love Ben in this season. I don't know how you felt about.
I thought it was fine. They gave him less to do, and like, I mean, like maybe that was a good thing for him because like Davey in this season is a pure menace. Like,
Yeah.
And I, it's an interesting thing to talk about, like the trend of comedies that have these unlikable characters. Because yeah, like if Dave was pushing it for me, this show really pushed it in terms of wow, she is her own villain in the show, which
Yeah.
is the point. But by the time I got to episode 5 or so, I was like, man, I kind of hate her. Like I can't
Yeah.
stand her anymore. Like she's funny for sure. So like, I'm gonna keep following along. But it really was the side characters that I was paying more attention to. Like I liked the new girl that they introduced in the season. I
Yeah.
thought she was cool.
And seeing them connect over like her being so resistant to be friends with her, of like, oh, you just want me to be friends with her because we're both Indian. And then seeing like what it feels like to have somebody understand like your life experiences. Like I remember, I think I was talking with Alyssa and I was like, oh, it was Barrett's wife. And I was like, it's so nice to like be able to talk to you about things and like not have to explain them.
Mhm.
Of like just things of like, I was telling her like back in the day that we were going to like the Obon Festival, which is like the annual thing that at my grandparents' temple in Mountain View, and was just like, oh, I don't have to like explain to you what that is. And I could to see Davey have those same realizations of like, oh, we have these shared experiences that it's nice to have somebody else understand on like a base level,
Yeah.
like
Well,
as part
that's
of life.
that's one of the things I like the most about the show is that it's one of the few shows that really focuses in on being a first or second generation American, like coming from an immigrant family. And season 1, I really dug those elements, especially because like she has a stressed relationship with her parents, especially her mom, because her dad's passed away and all this stuff. And so much of that back and forth, I for sure felt as somebody again who is first generation and also has a stressed relationship with my parents a lot of the time. And like for me when it comes to season 2, I this is another one that I didn't like as much as season 1 because I think so much of what they set up in season 2 in terms of what they do well and where those characters end up toward the end of season 1, season 2 just capitalized off of none of it. And so like there were moments of it tackling like having somebody in your school that shows up and is also Indian and has Indian parents that has to deal with all that. Those moments I liked, but then also like Davy's character in this season, it feels like she learned nothing from the previous season. Like she is just on a rampage of making every single wrong decision. Like the first decision she makes of being like, I'm gonna cheat on these two people. It's like, wait, hold on. How are we starting here? Like, why is this why don't we think about think through this? Because for I think so many people watching, I assume that is probably a line of like, yeah, I'm not gonna like this character if like their solution to the situation is to cheat on two people.
Well, and she doesn't ever really seem that torn up about it. She just seems like inconvenienced by it. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't seem like, at least from what I remember, like she's not ever. It's not like a battle. Like, is this right? Is this not? It's like, how do I do this? Yeah, and I think that's part of the hard part for me of like being able to relate.
Yeah, but like that said, I thought where they went later on was interesting in terms of her interactions with her therapist, kind of what they dig into in terms of like crazy Davy and what's wrong with her and all this stuff and why she's lashing out. I think there are interesting tidbits here and there regarding that. I just feel like as a whole, this season didn't come together for me as much as the first season, even though I did appreciate a lot of what they did with Paxton. I thought his character was a bit more standout than a lot of the other characters this season. Ben kind of felt like he was just there. The new girl they added, I did like, but then her Davy's two friends, her two closer friends, I thought their storylines were super weird as well. Like I was never invested in what was going on with them.
And the girl that was dating the guy that was like kind of shitty, I was like, this is like a weird storyline. And like I liked the other friend storyline better of like what it's like to like, but though it did get weird of like weirdly political during all the prom or homecoming stuff where it's like, oh, you're like targeting all these groups of people to hang out. I was like, is this how high school is? Did I miss this? Yeah. But shout out to the conversation that Davy at the end has with her mom when she like breaks down and stuff like that. Like that was really powerful. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, when you have like your worst fears realized by somebody that's like the closest person to you. And then also just the cameo of who Davy's mom is.
Or,
yeah, exactly.
Like shout out to Common
shows up.
Being Common. Yes. Common is Davy's mom's love interest in season 2, and he's literally just playing Common. It is great. He just does his Common thing. I also want to bring up Davy's cousin's storyline, which I also thought was weird. Like I appreciated the heart of it being like men are trash because cool, yeah, true. But also like the way they go about it, I feel could have been a little bit more, I don't know, developed. Like
yeah, it seemed very, very surfacey. Though I did like that she gets with the teacher guy, or not gets with, but like they have like their moments.
Yeah. But also, what happened to her dude? Like, wasn't she? Maybe I need to rewatch season 1. Wasn't she dating a dude from season 1 that she liked a lot?
She had a secret boyfriend season 1, and then has
what happened to him?
Like arranged marriage, and then maybe has a secret boyfriend in season 3 if she starts dating the teacher. I don't know.
Anyway, Never Have I Ever. Overall, as a show, fun. I would recommend it. Season 2 doesn't live up to season 1, but for me, as somebody who's a sucker for high school drama, I rock with it anyway. I'll watch it and enjoy it. And I think if you like season 1, then you can watch season 2 and probably like it and enjoy it. But yeah. It's not the best follow up, is what I'll say.
Yeah. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about Mythic Quest. Season 1 and 2 a little bit. Barrett, this is another one that you recommended to me, given a shot. It is a Apple TV Plus show that you all have probably heard of because it was featured in the Ubisoft press conferences at E3. Yeah. Ubisoft produced it, and it is a show with a lot of the dudes from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're behind it as well, and it is a workplace comedy that takes place in a video game development studio, and that is kind of the pitch. And what I will say is I am extremely surprised at how niche it is and how good it is, where as I'm watching the show, I'm like, I am the audience for this. This group right here is the audience for this. my friends in a small circle of the audience for this. I don't know if there's an audience for this outside of the San Francisco game circle, where it's like the jokes they're making, the things they're referencing, the situations, the plots, all of it. I'm like, huh. Okay, this is very tuned in, but they do a really, really good job. And I think that with the exception of a couple tangents that they make here and there, it is a very, very solid show, and I can't wait to see more.
You might be waiting a while because I think one of them said that there's no plans right now for a season 3. And for me personally, like we had subscribed to Apple TV Plus to finally give Ted Lasso and Central Park a shot. And then when we were looking for more stuff, Alyssa was the one who actually was like, let's check out Mythic Quest. And we were really surprised by it. It was like kind of fun, classic, like not totally one-to-one classic Always Sunny humor, but it had like hints of that while also like doing the whole commentary on like development studios. And I was surprised of like how tuned in they were, and I imagine that was a lot of whoever was from Ubisoft that was helping kind of out with the show or guide them. They were probably helping out with some of those aspects. But I really loved the cast in it, and it was, I think the show really clicked for both Alyssa and I. I think it was episode 5 of season 1, which is A Dark Quiet Death, which is a standalone episode starring Jake Johnson, Joey, so to get your attention there, because Jake Johnson is the fucking...
I do love him.
Yeah, he's great. And that episode is like one of our favorite episodes. They did 2 special episodes in between season 1 and season 2. They did a quarantine episode, which was one of the toughest pieces of content to watch about working from home and quarantining and all of this stuff that like just really, because I think it was in the lens of being in the video game industry, like hit really hard for me. And then season 2, there's like a lot of highlights throughout that season. And kind of similar to how Dave's season 2 ended, like, you know, the way season 2 ends, it felt like they were kind of finished telling this kind of like whole story, and the way they leave it off, like they leave it off just enough, like we could see more of that. But like I feel like the way things wrap up, I'm like, if we just get these 2 seasons, like I'm totally fine with that, especially with how niche it is. Like I'd be very surprised if they have enough of an audience to justify continuing the story. But yeah, shout out to like a lot of the flashback episodes are really good. The old man writer in the show, Carl Longbottom, who like writes all the lore for the video game that they work on. There's like a whole backstory episode with him that is just so good. Yeah, I was surprised how much I enjoyed it, because I feel like when they showed it off at E3, 1, it was the wrong place to be showing off a show like that, and 2, because it was like kind of taking stage at Ubisoft, like during this whole like E3 press conference. It was just like, we don't care, and I feel like it came out and nobody talked about it, and then like I don't feel like I have heard people talk about it until Alyssa was like, "Yo, let's check this out." Yeah, shout out to the cast. Ashley Birch is in it as well. I think she wrote an episode or 2 as well too. I think anybody who likes video games, interested in video games, in the video game industry, I think should absolutely check it out, because I think it's a really fun time.
If you listen to Kind of Funny Games Daily, you should watch this.
Yeah, I started a few weeks ago. I've only seen episode 1. But from what I saw from that episode, right, I hear what Tim's saying in terms of like, yeah, this feels like it's for a very specific group of people. Like they're making jokes about like assets and sending assets to a or leaking their assets to a streamer, because this is the guy that talks about our game and is going to have the biggest influence on the community. And like the kind of stuff they're getting into, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I get this a lot, but like, wow, this is like very specific. And so I'm excited to keeping on
and
watching.
Like the crunch that they like it hurts, especially with like the you know, the conversation that goes around about crunch, and they kind of make light of it, but also at least to me, not in a disrespectful way, but like kind of like making a joke about of like how much like specific teams work. Like that one dude from Drunk History is in a couple episodes, and he's like the Derek Waters, like is like the head of the art design team, and they're like, oh yeah, like they can whip something up really quick, and it's like he'll come in and it's like, no, this took us a lot of hours. I haven't seen my family in a week. Like we did a lot of work, and it's like, yeah, this brings up a lot of conversations that I think are important, but I think the classic Always Sunny way. Like I think they do a really good job of like balancing the humor in it as well. And also shout out to like all the like the little Easter eggs here and there. Some of the shout out to the guy who plays the young version of CW Longbottom, John DiMaggio.
Big Head from Silicon Valley.
Yeah, Big Head from Silicon Valley. He's great in that episode, and like honestly, like that episode is so good, and I think it is my favorite episode of the show. So, and then
cast
also
is phenomenal, and to Barrett's point, both seasons have these episodes that kind of go away from the main story for a flashback, and it seems completely unrelated, but then you're watching it, like pretty quickly, you're like, oh, okay, I see exactly what they're doing here. Yeah. And it's really satisfying. It's a different vibe than the show has, but it kind of reminds me of Atlanta in a weird way, where it's just like, okay, this is a weird episode, and I'm not sure I'm vibing with it, but by the end of it, when you look back at the whole season, you're like, okay, yeah, that probably was my favorite thing, like of the whole show, and the rest of it was so good.
Shout out to Danny Putty, who's like, this is I feel like a very different role for him, and he's so good. And then also
he's the asshole like sales business guy.
Yeah, who has like absolutely no soul, and like if he works at any sort of corporation ever, you have met this person once, and he does such a good job. And then also shout out to Charlotte Nickdow, who I have never been familiar with, but she plays Poppy Lee in Mythic Quest, and she is so goddamn good. And the way that they build up her story in both seasons is just, I absolutely loved it. And also shout out to Anthony Hopkins, who was a narrator for one of the special episodes. And I just loved that they got Anthony Hopkins for like.
It's a very surprising show, constantly. I mean, we just said a lot of names and spoiled a couple like cameos and stuff, but like we're not spoiling shit. Like there's so much in the show, and like I think the biggest compliment I can give it, and this is kind of a theme of this episode, is authenticity. Like it really feels authentic to the game space, and to Barrett's point about like some of the things they're joking about, it's like there's a lot of problematic shit that they're joking about, but like it's a comedy, and like that they obviously understand is problematic. That's why they're joking about it, and like these are bad characters, but the actors are great for portraying them. So it's like I think they do a really, really good job of dealing with the problematic elements of the games industry, of which there are many.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't think they could have picked a more fitted crew to tackle something like that with the people from Always Sunny, who tackle just like, you know, every comedy that is always pitched is like, oh, this is like a funny situational comedy about the worst people on the planet. Always Sunny is like really actually that, and the way like some of the things they joke about, you're like, Jesus Christ. And I think they were the right team to come in and do a comedy for the video game space. I was really impressed by it.
So moving on to wrap up the show, we want to do just a quick little like shout outs. We'll go around if everybody has like one sentence shout out they want to give stuff, not a full conversation or anything. Joey, do you have anything?
Go watch Cobra Kai. That's all I got.
Hell yeah. You're part of the squad. I love it. Blessing.
Super random, but Search Party season 1 is pretty good. So there you go. Watch it on HBO Max.
Speaking of HBO Max, the thing I would definitely shout out is Hacks. It's a comedy show I've talked about a couple times now. 10-episode comedy series. It is about a comedian in Vegas that has been like one of the biggest comedians in the world, and she's getting really old, and her like residency is like being in question, and then they team her up with a young modern comedian writer or comic writer. Comedy writer, that's what I'm trying to say, and just kind of dealing with them of who's right, who's wrong, like is the old way or the new way better, are either right. It is fantastic, and it is a show that only gets better. Every single episode is funnier than the last, and I could not recommend it more. It is fantastic.
I have one more thing before Barrett. The Movies That Made Us season 2 is out on Netflix. Ooh. Really good deep dives if you're interested in like the background of like how movies are made and how things come together. It's Forrest Gump, it's Jurassic Park, it's Back to the Future, and it's Pretty Woman. So it's like a pretty decent lineup of stuff. So yeah, go check that out.
Barrett.
Really quick ones. Shout out to Aquafina is Nora from Queens. We watched season 1 earlier this year. Season 2, I think, is about to drop. Very weird show. Aquafina is usually like the weirdest character in anything she's in, but I think this show does a very good job balancing of like her not being the standout weird character, because everybody is weird in this show. So it's very weird, very charming. I highly recommend it. Shout out to BD Wong, who plays her dad, and he's
I'm adding
also
it right now.
very funny in it. And the grandma, her grandma in the show is one of the actors from Orange is the New Black, who's also hilarious, and Bowen Yang is also in it from Saturday Night Live, and he's very good. Reservation Dogs just started. That's a new show by Taika Waititi that's on FX Hulu. It's about a group of Native American teens and just like them living on like reservation land. Very kind of classic Taika, very charming, very funny. But also isn't afraid to get into like kind of more real conversations, and it's just like kind of a fun teen show that Alyssa and I have been watching that I think premiered last week, and so they're 3 episodes in because they did like the 2-episode premiere. Brooklyn Nine-Nine final season premiered, I think, this week. That also came out with 2 episodes. The first episode, very strong, especially with the conversations of the kind of role that police have in modern society, and looking at a lot of the conversations that have been happening in the last year. I don't think they missed a beat. The show hasn't been afraid to tackle conversations about this before, and I think that the way that they were able to hone in on that stuff, hone in on each character and how human they are and how they're struggling with these things and struggling with these topics, and continuing those conversations while also still being fucking hilarious, because that show is hilarious. I was really impressed by it. Season 2 was also really fun, and just shout out to them. Kind of, I feel like they're going to go out on a strong note for Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so shout out to that. Second to last one, Ted Lasso Season 2. We're only 4 episodes in, roughly halfway through the season. I thought the show kind of started in a kind of how like y'all felt about the beginning of Dave. The first 2 episodes for Ted Lasso, I was like, there's something missing here, and I can't quite pinpoint what's wrong. And I was really scared of like, oh, is this the sophomore slump for Ted Lasso? They quickly picked it up, episode 3 and episode 4. Very good, very charming, at that same kind of quality height that the entirety of season 1, I would say. Like, I don't think there's a weak episode in season 1. Season 2 so far, I would say the first 2 started on a weird note. I do think they're important into building what the themes are for this season, but still very much enjoyed it. Shout out to the Christmas episode, which I very much needed last week. And the last thing I got, My Hero Academia, season 5. I know, like, Blessing, Mike and I have been doing Anime Thursdays, but since we're getting close to the end of My Hero, we're 6 episodes left, we're getting to the last arc. I know a lot of conversations have been going on with season 5, because a lot of people have been talking about how this is the weakest season of the show so far, which I would tend to agree with. I think it was very slow. Vague spoilers, but at one point in the show, they started veering off from like how they started reordering of how story elements were being told. And I think they did that on purpose, because I think they knew a lot of this season was going to be a build-up to what's going to happen in season 6. So they wanted to end on a strong note rather than having this arc that they're going to end with in the middle of the season. So definitely the weakest season, but I think it's a lot of necessary build-up, being caught up with the manga and knowing where the story is going to go. I think season 6 is going to blow a lot of people out of the water. I think people who thought the middle of season 3 with the Camino ward incident, who have been missing that kind of height of what this show has been able to bring, like, prepare for season 6, because it's about to be an entire banger of a season. So if you're not caught up, or if you've been interested in My Hero, I think now is the perfect time to get caught up. So shout out to My Hero Academia one time. It's me. I had to bring it up somewhere.
Gotta do it, because this is the Kind of Funny screencast. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of What We've Been Watching. We will be doing these, like I said, irregularly. There's no plan. It's not like it's a monthly thing or anything. It's more just like when we have stuff to talk about, we're going to gather together. It doesn't need to be this group necessarily. It could be anyone at Kind of Funny, and we'll come together and give these little mini reviews while simultaneously giving you full reviews of things like Marvel's What If, that is going to be weekly Star Wars Visions, that we'll have to wait and see what the release schedule of that is and how we're going to cover that. But for the weekly releases, for the most part, we'll be there if you guys are. So thank you very much for hanging out with us. We got some fun movies coming up. I know in a couple weeks we got Candyman. Ain't that right, Joey?
Ooh, I'm very excited, but also scared. Scary movies in theaters, I'm not prepared for.
Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're definitely, especially after seeing the trailer like 1,000 times recently, Jackass forever. We will be reviewing it,
Okay.
everyone. So I can't
God.
wait. But anyways, till next time, I love you all. Thank you. Bye.